All right, thank you very much, Abdulsalam Jibril, for that backgrounder. We have here in the studios two mass communication scholars to discuss issues around World Television Day. First, let's welcome Professor Umaru Pate. Professor Umaru Pate is a professor of mass communication and incumbent vice chancellor of the Federal University, Kashere. Professor Umaru Pate, glad to have you again, and good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you, and good morning, Kingsley and Nigeria.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, former acting director general of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC. Professor Idachaba, glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, Kingsley. Good to be on. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
All right. Let's just begin by having an understanding of what World Television Day represents. Why World Television Day? Professor Pate.
Well, if you look at the television as a concept as well as its practicality, it has contributed significantly to humanity in several ways. Now, let's go back a little. In the beginning was the word. Then later printing was invented following the invention of the printing machine. And that gave birth to the printing of newspapers. We moved towards the beginning of the 20th century. The radio came because of the technology that also came. And shortly after the television started, when newspaper came, when radio came, people started saying, oh, newspaper is going to die. Newspaper didn't die. Then radio came, TV came, combining sound and sight. People are here now, radio will die, newspaper will die. The two of them didn't die. Now, TV continued. Then the internet came. With the coming of the internet, people say, now the funeral of television, radio, and newspapers will be celebrated. But they're still struggling, and we have what we call convergence now. And with convergence, we have the advantage of digital technology because of the advent of the internet as well as the revolution in information and communication technologies. TV is still struggling to maintain a space. And TV got the advantage now of being able to disseminate its signals on the digital platform, giving additional access to many more channels to come up, many more ways of disseminating information using audio and video, and at the same time also making it cheaper and far more democratic to reach many more people. As they say, the future of the media industry is in audio and video, and television has this advantage. So the world has every reason to celebrate television, considering the contribution it has made since its invention to date. It has kept people informed, it has kept people far more educated, as well as entertained in many more ways. And you could see how it has been able to take away the attention of people from unworthy behaviors and activities, for them to at least see and emulate, as well as practicalize some of the things the television could provide with the advantage of sight and sound. So I think the world has every reason to celebrate TV, and TV will be around for a long time to come.
It has revolutionized how people view happenings around the world, and it has also set, it's a medium that sets the agenda and for policy decisions and shapes public opinion around the world. Professor Idachaba, would you say that television in Nigeria is on the right track?
Yes. First of all, nice to be with my friend and brother, the Kaigaman on set.
Nice to be with my lecturer.
Thank you.
It was my lecturer.
I'll come to you. The point you raised about the significance of the World TV Day is one that's poignant, because I tried to check why TV Day in the first place. And what I found out was very interesting, that in 1996, the United Nations decided that there should be a World TV Day, and that it was even opposed. Because according to analysts, there were so many media days already on the calendar. You had the World Press Prism Day, you had Journalism Day and all of that. So they were thinking that the World TV Day was going to be repetitive or very unnecessary. But as we have seen, TV has become, if I may say, the major issue in communication. Sitting on technology, like Professor Pate said, TV has disrupted the philosophy, the conceptualization, and all the existing myths about communication. with all the disruptiveness, with all the challenges that it poses to innovation and creativity, negatively and positively. It has turned policymakers, it has enabled content creators, it has allowed for a lot of surrealism, fake artificial creation, and also more importantly, it has also dynamized the commodification of content in terms of giving added value, to content creators. But it has also opened up lots and lots of challenges within the media landscape. And that is why I think that even more than the very humble radio, TV remains the major issue in communication today.
Will it still remain, do you think television, the way it's going, people say it's been threatened by the social media and other platforms? Do you think it will still be relevant in the next, say, 50 years?
Yeah, what TV has done, from the point that Professor Pate made, which I also want to re-emphasize, is that technology has allowed what you call convergence, right? And rather than see limitations, what you see are levels of enhancement. But again, like I hinted, it poses a lot of multi-dimensional issues, and many of them on the advantage, sometimes on the disadvantage. Professor Pate attended my inaugural lecture, where I looked at the issue of convergence and how it shapes media philosophy and even worldviews globally, right? And what you see is that because of the enhancement of the social technology, especially on the social media, like you have said, you now have a lot of lowering of entry points. It's difficult now to determine who is a content creator, as I alluded in my paper. Who is the editor? Who is creating the story? Who controls the process of content dissemination? So what you have enabled by technology is an all-comer, and it raises a lot of issues. But again, the advantages are many. Now you find total interactiveness. You have adaptability in terms of people's capacity, to provide content within the framework of their own little budget. People are happier. But again, also negative dissemination. And also very disturbingly, there's what I tend to call the media rudeness, consequent to the intrusion of technology, where content is thrust upon people, whether they want or not, and because of the ubiquity of technology, especially TV, it goes everywhere, and it comes so strongly with images. So sometimes you don't want to see, but you are forced to see. And once you see, it affects your psyche, it affects your thinking, it affects your orientation, right? The levels of believability, credibility, authenticity are also shaken. So there's a huge test, around the amenability of what the social media does, and also the consequences, for human understanding and usage.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Databa. I would like us to take a step back again into history. About 3 years ago, when Nigeria celebrated the advent of the first television station in Africa, that was in 1959, I recall we had a 2-day conversation on 60 years of television in Nigeria and then in Africa. And a number of the veterans in television in Nigeria were our guests, including the first Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Engineer Vincent Maduka. We also had the first female graduate in the newsroom at WNTV Ibadan. That is Mrs. Omobolale Onojide, whose husband was clerk of the Western House of Assembly when the crisis broke in 1962. Those were early beginnings, and the conversation on that day, on those two occasions, centered around one, technology, and then the content. We use the word content now in the digital age, but it is the case, Prof, that programming is a cardinal element in broadcasting, more particularly for television. Are we getting it right as we look at World Television Day 2022? For us in Nigeria, is our programming right? Which is to say, we were talking about content, or people just throw in all kinds of things, and then you are looking. So you are looking to see standards, and those standards are elusive.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. You see, in the media, there are 4 or 5 major factors. Not only programming, content is one. First, funding. You need funding for the other thing to happen. 2, you need technology. Technology is the enabler for media production or media content or even the performance of the media itself. Then number 3, content is the window to the world. The difference between NTA and the Ministry of Information is that NTA can provide content. So the content is what links you with your audience. Then number 4 is the credibility of the content that you produce. What is the quality? What is the level of believability? And how truthful or competently produced are these contents? And above all, of course, the safety and the autonomy required for you to do these productions. The media is not like the bureaucracy in the ministry. Here, you need high level of independence. You are going to involve a lot of people. You need artists whom you may not necessarily employ. So you need resources and you need flexibility for you to operate. So by the time you combine all of this and take a look at our own context, then you can understand why if people sometimes question our content, it may not necessarily be just content alone, but all these things. Do you have the enabling technology for you to produce the required content that people in Nigeria can see and compare with other content produced with better technologies elsewhere? Are we really investing in technologies? Number 2, do you have the funds to use to invest in these technologies to produce the right content? Number 3, do you have that autonomy and independence for you to think and produce content based on the needs and relevance that your audience can respect? Or do you simply produce without deep research, without deep thinking? And that will naturally leave you on your own. Now, every house you go to, the first thing you see in their sitting room is the TV. Which means TV is central to our existence. TV is there to inform, entertain, and keep us together. But with this with the advent of technologies now, you have digitization, and digitization has given access to multiple channels, and not only multiple channels but multiple owners coming with diverse ideas. So the challenge for the existing or conventional media is, can you also provide the enabling environment using the right technologies to compete with some of these smaller producers who can do much with little? Unlike big organizations like the NTA, where you need bigger resources for you to remain afloat. You are serving the whole of Nigeria, 216 million people. In almost every state you have an NTA station. But compare yourself with somebody who has just one channel and has access to the same technologies that you have. He can talk to everyone in this world. With little money, he can do much. In your own case, you need bigger money, bigger technologies to do the same that he or she is doing.
Like the radio.
So by the time you look at all these challenges, you can then understand why we may have issues. And this is also the era of fake news, misinformation, disinformation, and the other kind of malinformation. And because of this, people sensationalize information in the process of dissemination so that they can attract hits on their blogs. They can also attract whatever. The only advantage you have is video. And now technology has made it so simple to combine audio and video for even the newspaper, for almost everyone. So for you to remain afloat and remain extremely relevant and beat the others, your content must also be super.
Fine, Prof. Patrick, thank you. Professor Dachaba, the reason I raised that question is to tie it to the value of television to humanity.
To national development, if you want.
Well, national development narrows it down to our nation, but first to humanity.
Yes.
Yeah. So are we getting this right? Is proliferation now even harmful to television?
Now, Kingsley, I think you raised a valid point. The way to look at it is to ask, in 2022 World TV Day, what relevance is TV to our collective humanity as a people? And then we can zero it out to how contributory it's been to our own national challenges. And it's time to reflect, to retrospect to the evolution of television in Nigeria. You know, in 1959, Awolowo came up with his initiative, and then it was a regional TV, and that was a major signifier. From there, all the other regional authorities decided to also set up their own TV. But in terms of the philosophy of TV, then the question will have been asked, what was the intention, the original intention of the innovation of TV, the intrusion of TV into the Nigeria? Of course, it had a political undertone, but like we know all over the world, it's a major tool for cultural propagation, social cohesion, and national diplomacy and economic development. And I think that largely, Nigerian TV, the TV in Nigeria has been able to actualize some of those objectives. Thanks immensely also to NTA, becoming a national network in about 1977 or thereabout, creating a national symbol of a TV viewing culture. And if you see, in terms of using TV as a tool, for cultural growth, cultural propagation, or what we call socialization and social cohesion, the NTA has done quite a bit, but it didn't do it without the support of government. And that's the point that Professor Pate was making. I recall that even when we were in the university and we used to go to studios to do production, most of the productions were funded by government. All the major soap opera that you see that made mark, some of them you are recreating and reinventing, like the Village Headmaster, are things that were actually supported, with government resources. And I think that is what is lacking, because government has shifted away from investing heavily in cultural content production. This drift has created a lacuna that has allowed private enterprise to seize the initiative. So what you find now is commodification of content, and with commodification of content, there's a capitalist intrusion, so that the person who provides the content is motivated by gains. He doesn't think about production values that much. He doesn't think about national or even ideological imperative that much. What matters to the content creator now, unfortunately there are many of them, with what can entice the public and what can bring in the money. I looked at the statistics, and they say on YouTube there are about 650 Nigerian channels, right? And out of these, about 35 of those channels have over 1 million subscribers. Now, I tell you, Kingsley, if you put together the total subscriber base of all the pay TV we have in Nigeria, DSTV, Go TV, NTA, Star Times, and the hardly would it go above 5 million. So it tells you that the potential material value of the content market is changed away, from government involvement. And it doesn't happen like that anywhere in the world. Countries all over the world are aware that there's a significant drift on the social media, that individual, innovative, youthful, creative content creators are there. The government is also involving side by side so that there can be a national ethos, and a national purpose. So we need to begin to think at this period, how does NTA, for instance, get its budget? I have not seen in recent time a holistic or a well nationally encompassing program that's emanating from the NTA that used to be those days, where you say it's a must watch. What you see as alternative are so many channels that are emanating on the DSTV platform, and what they do, is to commission young Nigerian talents to produce. Some of them, they acquire them under terms that are probably not too satisfactory, to the content creators, but they don't have an option. They have to survive. They have to be innovative and creative. So there's a mass differential in terms of private initiative, government involvement, national purpose, individual purpose, and the collective will of the Nigerian.
Professor Datoba, I think it is because, I don't know whether it's because we have refused or we are still very slow in implementing the national communication or information policy as envisioned. Right now, there is no functional information policy in this country. And that will have given us we will have created a regime or a climate that can ensure satisfactory performance by all these organizations that you have mentioned. I remember, I think it was during the Obasanjo regime, a committee was set up, some of us were involved, under the late Professor Alfred Opubo, to do two things. One, we did the national community radio policy as well as the national information or do we say communication policy, which was to give a sort of a direction. The first one was in 1987 during the Babangida regime, and somehow it has become outdated. Now we are trying to come up with another one. It has been drafted. It's in the ministry, lying down. And that document is supposed to give us a sort of a guide, create a climate, and direct the performance and functions of the media sector in Nigeria. But without it, we are only operating in isolationist kind of behavior. So there is no coordination, and we do not have a clearly defined focus or even the national philosophy that we are supposed to promote and protect.
Absolutely.
If you come up, what are the specific national values as defined in our policy, which our media organizations are expected to perform, and they also need to be supported. Of course, we know government cannot pay all the monies that may be required, and the funding issue is a global threat to our media organization. But the truth is, if we want organizations like NTA to remain relevant, we must also give them the enabling capacity for them to compete with some of these things. Don't forget, the audience test is changing, and the attention of the audience is becoming scarcer. By the time you take, let's say, your Star Times decoder now, how many channels do you have access to? Thousands. And because of that, for your organization to command the attention of viewers, there must be something thick about it. And how do you also create counter narratives to some of these messages that we get from the alternative channels?
From the fake news.
Yes, and the younger people who are coming up now are disconnected from this conventional media organization. If you do a survey today in Nigeria of the average age of a typical radio listener, or even TV, the conventional TV viewer, you may be shocked that it may be above 30 or even getting to 40. Now, how do you connect to the young people who are the majority viewers, who may be the majority consumers of these messages? How do we ensure that the messages we give them make relevance to their lives and is in the interest of the national policy? But if you leave a vacuum, then somebody will be there to come in, either for money-making reasons or for whatever reasons. So we need to sit down and define what we do.
This sitting down and thinking is not, in my humble view, necessarily the business of the executive branch alone.
No.
That is to say the government. It will also involve the legislature, because earlier, Prof, you were talking about the elements and the mix for television, and you talked about technology, content, funding. Credibility, and of course programming, because programming would then say how much time you allot XYZ funding, and that would then say purposive funding.
Yes,
because if you had a generation or two ago that was fed on a diet of taste by moonlight, taste by moonlight wasn't just taste by moonlight. Taste by moonlight was purposive. It was meant to be educated. What is the alternative to it today? People are talking about, is it Cartoon Network or some of these? So what is the local alternative that we have purposively created as part of our, again, value orientation, as Professor Idachaba talked about? I want to leapfrog to another issue, which is also relevant. We're talking about World Television Day, and I want us to focus. Let me get your views on news flow patterns, which has always been a major challenge in the world of communication, and particularly for television. The opinions, it is said, that the advanced countries hold of the less developed countries come from their media accounts. And I think, it's almost clear that the kind of images that the advanced media outlets collect from the less developed world and then disseminate to their audiences reinforce the prejudices against the less developed world, and therefore even policy formulation and so on and so forth. This was, of course, one of the issues around the New World Information and Communication Order. We appear not to have come out of that just yet.
In fact, we have reclined.
That's right. So how do we? Okay, let me have your take on this, and then what you think the pathways are to a new order. Yes,
Kingsley, things are even getting worse. I remember writing a chapter in a book some years back. The new code debate, is it still alive? I was asking that question. And the new code, the new World Information and Communication Order debate, at the point some years back, with the advent of the internet and the democratization of access and dissemination of information machinery. Now, policy has become very weak. You see, what we have been doing with these technologies, we have been busy learning how to use these technologies without thinking of how to govern the technologies. And these technologies have made information dissemination so easy. And then it has also made, there's inequity in the ownership of these technologies. Some people are the controlling agents of these technologies. They have the resources, they manufacture, and because of that, they have access to their own defined pictures of you. What they define is what they take of you. You do not have the capacity to counterpenetrate into their psychology. They have all the means to come and tell you who you are, how you are, and what they are. You do not have the means of now painting your own story to them. The only way you could do is perhaps when we send our children to their schools and they exhibit their brilliance. That's when they know that we are also good. But we do not have this technological capacity of penetrating into their television sets. But they penetrate to us, and they are sending all sorts of things to us. So we are sort of subdued in the current environment. In the past, we could even talk. Now, nobody is even talking. Even the debate on the UNESCO platform is no longer up.
Why is that?
Because we do not have the resources. The technology is the one that is defining things in the world today. And if you look at how the information technology is evolving, the volume, the velocity, and even the ferociousness with which these technologies are bombarding onto us, what is our own contribution? And if you cannot control the technology, there is no way you can have the editorial independence and the editorial definition of who you are. So long as we are slow in this respect, and our policies and values are also not so clearly defined, it becomes difficult. You cannot control the internet. So long as you don't have control, anything can be sent to you. So it's very, very difficult. We have to do a lot of things, from training, from the way we give media literacy to our people so that they can be critical consumers of media content.
I think, Prof, the point you made earlier, I think underscores the essence of this discussion about the national policy on communication. And that's where the consciousness actually begins. If you have no articulated national policy, then you are blind. You operate in the vague, right? And that is a problem, because whether you want or not, the cyberspace is a space of engagement.
Yes.
Right? And what is happening within satellite and the digital space is that people are occupying, right? And they will keep occupying.
Yes.
And that's why you have an endless number of channels, that people are filling the space with, right? And if you do not have a policy, a deliberate policy, well-calculated, enunciated policy that will create levels of engagement for you, then you become extremely vulnerable. And what we are seeing is the level of vulnerability. A lot of countries deliberately, like I said earlier, invest in their national media as the first level of engagement. Then whether deliberately or through emission commission, they also support personal initiatives. So long as they all sum up to that national imperative. And that is the way it's done. So you find America with its own national network on the terrestrial, on the satellite, on fiber, on the internet, and they occupy space. If you go to China, all the channels you watch on the Chinese space are actually Chinese channels, and they do so much, to see how they can fend off intrusion of other foreign channels. So everybody tries to protect the space. We are not doing that much in Africa, even with our advancements in technology, even with advancements in content creation. Nigeria is the leading hub for film video content production. In the whole of Africa, second or third globally. How much of this content have we been able to use our own platforms to push out? I don't know if we have any locally, created or produced or manufactured app or information dissemination platform, that is original to us, that can compete with the other media giant companies that are terrorizing us.
So if you look at all these issues I've raised,
so
look at also the staff who do these things in these organizations. How are they catered for? What kind of training do they have? During the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, almost everyone in other sectors that are sleeping were giving assistance, were giving palliatives. The media was on its feet. The staff were exposed, vulnerable, and busy educating and informing Nigerians. Yet nobody, I repeat, nobody gave them a dime in appreciation of their efforts. Now, how can the best come out of them? We are talking about content. So we must also be conscious that these are creatively gifted people who use their talents to keep you informed, to keep you educated, to even keep you entertained. And they sacrifice so much, and almost all the time they are in the studios working, or in the newspaper house working, yet at the end of the day they look miserable.
Professor Pankin, thank you so much for this point you've raised, and I'm sure that we'll keep, there'll be another platform to discuss.
I pray so.
Yes, I pray so that
we need to also make our voice known.
Yes, there are a lot of underlying,
other sectors that are doing less,
on this
contributing less to the development of Nigeria, but are receiving more unjustifiably.
Gentlemen, before we sign you off, which leads us to the point, I believe, of the national policy on media and communication, namely whether as a philosophy there is a recognition of the media as one of the soft powers of any nation.
Yeah.
Media. Whether we recognize that the media is a soft power. You can have your hard power, all the armaments and so on and so forth, but the soft power to reach the mind.
On paper, yes. But how do you translate and give meaning to the thinking?
Okay, Professor Pate, Vice Chancellor of Federal University, Kashere, is the Professor of Mass Communication. Thank you so much. You've raised a lot of things, especially welfare for. Thank you for that. And Professor Armstrong Idachaba, former Director General, National Broadcasting Commission, NBC. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jimmy. Nice to
Very lively conversation.
Thank you.
We'll take shots. Update next.